Hi everyone, welcome back to this tutorial. We arrived at the point where we implemented the net present value calculation, but we didn't complete the formula with the last three parameters. So this formula should eventually end up with these three other parameters like in this formula here. It seemed to be very easy, but actually we need to pay attention of a few things in order to make it work as we want. So let's start with these parameters that I can really copy and paste from here. Okay, so apart that this should be in lowercase, we are already fine, but our inflation and derive, once we want the user to prompt some values, we may want the user to prompt values that are like 22% or 10%, but this or even 2%, for example, 3%, 4%, but this would make this calculation become not correct, because this number would become, in case of an inflation of 4%, would become 5. We want it to become 1.04, the 1.05. So we need to divide the inflation and derive by 100 so that we can retrieve the correct value. This is the first thing that we have to do, but then it will work properly. And then this part is correct, and I can prove you. Excuse me, I placed at the N, I left the N and not the E, so the code wasn't working. So as you can see now, we have a value. If we change the derive or the inflation, the value changes accordingly, so everything is working correctly and is considering the derive and the inflation. Now we lack only to add the taxation, so we are going to take this field here. And add it here. At this point, we could do the same, divide it by 100, the taxation, or we may want the user to give it a small value, is the same thing. In case, and I want to keep it like this so that I show you a different approach, in case you want the user to give it a small value like 0.22, 0.10, etc., you can leave it like that, but then you need to pay attention here to use parse float and not parse integer. I did it before the code was different, then I changed it. So if you want, of course, to have floating point number as a result, you need to use parse float, otherwise you will keep receiving 0 and you don't know why. And that's it, the code is finished. I would like to end up doing some these boundaries here that I said that you need JavaScript. Actually, then I thought a little bit about it, and I just realized that you can use HTML and CSS and do a pretty good work. So let's implement these boundaries and see how to do it. So in the input tags, we can use the min and max values to implement the boundaries. For example, we can say that the minimum here is 0 and maximum here is 1. Beware that the 0 and 1 must be strings, otherwise the code will not work. And it actually doesn't do anything particular, because it will not stop the user to, yes, it does stop the user, Actually, it doesn't even stop the user, but it is, there is a little sign that is saying that the value must be less than or equal to 1. Is not enough. This we need to use some CSS to inform the user that is doing something that is not correct. First, let's finish to place our minimum and maximum values. And same you should do with the inflation anyway. Of course, then you should in your logic, in your JavaScript logic, you should stop the calculation in case the values of the different parameters aren't correct. That's pretty obvious and quite long, so I will just skip that part. The two pseudo elements that I want to use for this purpose are user valid and user invalid. They are less famous than valid and invalid. There is a little difference between these two things, user valid and valid, or invalid and user invalid. Go and check it out. I don't even want to explain too much this thing. In this case, it's better to use user valid or invalid from my point of view. Anyway, even before using user valid and user invalid, I shall place the focus state with an outline of none. And then if the user has prompted a valid number, you can give it a border of a green border, otherwise you give it a red border. So as simple as this. So now if you see, if I place a number that is correct, it becomes green. If I place a number that is not correct, it becomes red, and it even prompts me saying that the value must be less than or equal to 100, and so it helps the user to know what is doing wrong. And that's it. It's very simple, done in this way. Of course, you should style it even better, and maybe you should start to create a pop-up and not let the browser do a simple HTML pop-up that is not really visually appealing, but it can work. Mind that, for example, another issue that it might comes in case we are using values that are not integers. This piece of CSS will break. I was looking at it. In fact, in taxes, which I decided to use a number between 0 and 1. If I use 0, it is saying that is correct, but if I use 0.1, is saying that is incorrect, even though it is correct mathematically, but probably this feature of HTML and CSS is not meant for the use of integers, of floating point numbers. Anyway, thank you very much to have followed these videos. I hope you learned something useful, and you subscribe to my channel, and see you in the next ones.